In this video, we're going to make a trio of mini Halloween woven wall hangings. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to be using our mini loom for these little projects today. This is such a versatile little loom. You can make mini woven wall hangings on it. You could do a bookmark, you could do a coaster. It's a great complete starter if you want to just try out weaving. And you can check these out at spruceandlinen.com. We make them ourselves in our garage, and I hope you like them. All right. So for all of these projects, I'm going to be using some of the same materials. I'm going to be using 4/8 cotton for all of them, just the natural color. I'll be using Lion Brand Woolly Stick and Quick for all the weaving portions. And I've already cut out these little branches for the tops of each weaving, in addition to the fringe, but we'll get to that in a little bit. It's kind of fun if you already have a project pre-planned to be able to cut and prepare some of the stuff before you start, because then it goes pretty quickly, which personally I'm just a fan of, because sometimes I'm just impatient. So I'm gonna be warping on 16 total warp strings just with a single warp. I decided to use the 4/8 cotton instead of the 8/8. 8/8 would be fine, linen would be fine, but I'm gonna be doing some needle felting, and I don't love needle felting into linen because it's a really dense material and it just always feels like, is this gonna break my tapestry needle? I have done it, but cotton works a little better. And I decided to use the 4/8 cotton, which is the thinnest of the three that I carry, just because I want the branch to really stand out. And this little weaving is an example of where I used 8/8 cotton. So you can see that it's much thicker and you're seeing a lot more of it on the little branch, and I don't want that for this particular project. So we're gonna start on the very far end of our loom. I'm starting at the bottom, so I'll be starting and stopping at the bottom of the loom so that those ends will be in the bottom of the piece. So I'm just gonna go up here, and I'm gonna just warp my whole loom with one string between each of the pegs, or in each of the notches. I say it a different way every time, but same thing. Yeah, you'll see that this string is kind of sitting at an angle. I will fix that later with the twining stitch. It's not a big deal at all. I usually end up triple knotting this knot at the very bottom because I just really don't want it to become loose. And then I am gonna cut off the excess here just so that it's out of my way. Next, I'm gonna grab some painter's tape to tape the loom down onto the table so that it doesn't slide around. Next, I'm grabbing this folded over piece of cardstock. This one is about 2 3/4 inches tall. So I'm just weaving that in with simple plain weave, so over one, under one, all the way across. Next, I'm gonna grab the color that I'll be working with for this particular piece. I wanna work on our ghost woven wall hanging first. And so the background for that one is going to be orange. I am using the same brand of yarn for all of these. I will link it down in the description box below. So that's gonna be one of the things that provides some continuity between the pieces. We're using all the same brand and line of yarn, which is Lion Brand Woolly Stick and Quick. I use it all the time. So I grabbed a piece that's about 4 widths of my piece. Almost 5. And I always grab too much for this, and I'm just paranoid that I'll one day grab not enough and be really annoyed. I'm gonna start out with a twining stitch and then do 2 rows of plain weave over top of that. And that's gonna be our base work for this piece. As always, if you need a tutorial for how I like to start basically every woven wall hanging I make, I will put a link right here for you. Okay, so we have that nice and squished down. I'm gonna cut off the excess. We're gonna tuck that end down behind here. We'll tuck those properly in later. And now I can get started with my fringe. So I have cut my fringe pieces at 9 inches each, and I'm gonna be using 2 strands per grouping. So I'm grabbing 2 pieces of these pre-cut pieces, and then I'm gonna be working around 2 warp strings at a time to do my raya knot, and then just pull them down. I matched up the ends, made sure they were straight. We can also give this a trim later because they never end up perfect anyway. So I'm just gonna go all the way across, tying 2 pieces of yarn around 2 pieces of warp string. All right, so we have all our fringe on and we're ready to get started weaving. I wanna weave approximately 23 rows. I know that's really specific, but again, I'm going off of a previous mini woven wall hanging that I've created to figure out the height for these. I do that all the time, so if I'm making a similar sized piece, I can reference another piece and see how many rows I might need to weave. So I'm gonna be doing 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 23. I'm gonna take some extra. Now, let me measure this out with arm's lengths. 1, 2 3/4. I know some of you really want me to actually measure this out, but I think if you do what I did, where I'm just going across, I am gonna have extra though. So we know we have 2 3/4. So hopefully for the next piece, I'll know exactly how much I need, because I have a feeling this is gonna be way too much, but we gotta start somewhere. All right, so I'm just gonna start weaving plain weave. This whole piece is gonna be plain weave, and we're going to be needle felting our little ghost on top. Rows, and then we're gonna leave a nice long tail, and I'm gonna do my twining stitch over top of that, and then I'm gonna see how much yarn I had left so that I can make sure on the next 2 I don't take too much. All right, so in the end, I had about 1/2 an arm's length too much. All right, so we have all the weaving done for this little piece already. So we're gonna take this off of the table now. I'm gonna save these little pieces of tape for the next weaving. I like to try, when I can, to use the tape multiple times. And then once it gets too filled with like fiber dust, then I'll grab some new tape. So we're gonna fish all these ends from the back, or sorry, from the front into the back, so we can tuck them in. And then I'm gonna grab a smaller yarn needle and tuck in these ends. All right, so we have our little base weaving, and now we're gonna do some needle felting on top of this. And I like to keep it on the loom when I do the needle felting because the tension kind of helps. I do have a pile of my scraps here. I have scrap bins. If you haven't seen my video where I sorted all of my yarn scraps, you can check that out here. I have a lot of yarn scraps, so we definitely in the near future need to do some more scrap weaving projects. So I'm gonna grab my little needle felting pad, and again, the tools and materials will be linked in the description box below. You can grab these from our shop if you're interested. I'm also going to take some off-white merino wool roving. So you can see I just have like a little piece, and to get that piece, all you have to do is take a longer piece and have your hands far apart. You know, my thumbs are about 5 inches apart or so, and just kind of pull. The reason why you have to have your arms spaced apart like that is because merino wool roving has a really long staple length, which means like the length of your hair. So think of it as like the length of the hairs themselves. Because they're so long, they don't pull apart easily when you put your hands close together. See, I can't pull them apart because it's almost like as if I were to grab my own hair like this and try to pull it apart. Like you would just be breaking it at that point. All right, so I have my little piece here. And I would say this is about maybe a total of 6 inches or so. I'm not being super precise with this. It's not, if you've been here for a while, you know that that's not always the way I like to create in terms of measurements. What I'm thinking, this is gonna be the top of my ghost, and I'm just gonna sort of fold over the ends of the wool and possibly a couple times, and that will become the head of the ghost. And I kind of want the base of the ghost, or the bottom of the ghost, to sort of wisp out into the fringe, kind of like I have it laid here. I'm hoping that'll look good. I'm kind of winging this, and we're just gonna see if it works. I love little projects for this reason, that we can just play around and see what works and what doesn't. We can always pull this off and try again if necessary, especially because we're covering so much of the loom. Now, maybe I want him a little bit longer. Oh, and he could have, should he have little arms? Because he could have little arms like that. Let's just try to get the top of this into the piece. So I'm just using my multi needle felting tool to begin. So we just kind of want to get this stuck into the weaving. And then I need to decide, is he gonna have arms? I've just decided it's a he also. I think I need the head to be kind of bigger like that. This is one of those ones that shouldn't need a ton of needle felting. We're just basically getting it enough that it won't just fall off the weaving. And we can always add more wool on top of this if it feels necessary. So I'm going in at an angle in those places where I want to shape the head to be a little bit more round. The biggest thing when you're needle felting, and you do need proper felting needles because basically they have little burrs and that helps tangle the wool. So you can kind of think of needle felting a little bit like backcombing. So we're backcombing it into this piece and you'll start to see these little fuzzies come through, and that's like needle felting into the weaving. So one of the biggest things when you're needle felting is whatever direction you go into the piece, you need to come back out at the same angle. So if I were to put my needles in like this and then turn and come out, you're going to risk breaking these needles. These are steel, they are very thin, and so they can break easily. That's another thing. You wanna do this in a place where if the needle breaks, you'll be able to find the end. So your couch, unfortunately, probably isn't the best place to do needle felting, but you do you, just warning you. Sometimes these break and it's really hard to find the tip that broke off. Okay, so we've got this little head forming, which I am definitely liking. So I'm just like carefully going around. Let's try to define that a little bit more. And we want to make sure enough of this is in the weaving again that it doesn't want to like fall down. I'm trying to also just envision like what a ghost looks like. You can always use references, but I'm just kind of winging it. So I'm looking at this and it feels like there should be more of a dip here, just because, there we go. So I grabbed just my single needle tool now just to do some more precise needle felting. I think this already looks pretty cute. We can even like try to gather that in together. It's definitely thicker on this side than this side. Maybe I can remedy that. So because I folded it over, I can almost like stuff some of that back up in here. I do think I'm gonna need a little bit more. I'm actually gonna bring this down. Might need a little bit more in this area, which is totally fine. I can just grab another little piece and I'm even gonna just fold it over. And I just wanna thicken up this arm because it's looking a little bit thinner than the other one. Now, I wanna make sure this kind of has some like flow to it. So I'm not sure if I wanna really needle felt this whole thing and just have the bottom be flowing, or if I should needle felt a little bit more. Something I've learned to do, or like to do, after I've needle felted a bit, you can kind of see all those like little divots of where I've been felting it in. So something you can do is just sort of, especially if you have a multi-tool like this, you can almost comb it out a little bit. I'm sure there's other tools to do this with as well, but it just kind of smooths it out again so you don't see all those holes. And now I'm kind of like, I feel like I should have kept more on the edges, but I'm gonna go in and try to like refine the edges. Okay, the head, the head went a little bit flat, you guys. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and add some more in that area because it definitely went kind of flat on me. Oh, I feel like that looks so much better. Again, that's kind of cute. I feel like I want to add the face soon so I can get a better feel for like how this actually looks. So let's add a face. I'm gonna grab some black wool for that. So I'm gonna create, I just grabbed the tiniest little tuft and I kind of want to just roll it to make an eye. And obviously we'll needle felt it into place so that it is the right shape. So I just kind of like wrapping it, rolling it in my fingers just to get it started. And then I just start needle felting it right in. And every once in a while I'm peeling up the weaving from the base that I'm felting into so that I'm not only felting into this. And again, you can see all those fuzzies of me felting through. And the nice thing about a ghost face too is like it doesn't have to be just like the actual ghost. It doesn't have to be perfect for it to look kind of right. Oh my gosh. I feel like that's really bringing it to life. Very cute. Okay, let's make him a mouth as well. I definitely like it a lot more with the face. I'm still unsure about the bottom though. Like, I don't know if maybe it needs to be a bit shorter. Let's try that. Kind of helps. And like, maybe it just needs to, flow down a bit. Okay, now I'm gonna needle felt down here just a little bit. And again, we can always kind of comb that back out. He's a cute little ghost though. I do think that like around, there's just little parts right here that could be a little bit cleaner. Okay, what do we think? I think that's pretty dang cute. I like that he's kind of going down into the fringe. I think I've needle felted enough. I mean, the nice thing about a woven wall hanging is they don't get handled very much, ideally. And so it's not like it needs to be so incredibly durable because it is something that's just supposed to be a wall decoration. I'm happy with that. I think this is gonna be so cute on the little twig. So we're gonna get this off of the loom now. So I'm gonna slide this piece of cardstock out. We're gonna flip all of the fringe forward. And then I'm gonna grab this first string, if I can grab it, and this second loop. So I have 3 strings in total, and we're gonna do an overhand knot. And then for the rest of them, until we get to the very end, I can do 2 at a time, or just 1 loop at a time. And I'm just knotting those up against the bottom of the weaving itself. We don't want to pull too tight on them. We just want it to kind of meet up with that twining stitch we did at the beginning. All right, so we have this one off of the loom, and I'm gonna finish off the bottom. There's a couple different ways you can do this. If you want to be a little bit more extra, which I think is what I'm gonna do with this one, you can take a small yarn needle, weave this into some of that base work, just like so. And I'm gonna trim this down just because we have that knot there. And I'm gonna take those 3 strings, thread them into here, into my needle, and then pull that through. Then I can trim this off and just do the same thing all the way across the loom. And then last but not least, I'm going to put this onto my little branch. It is nice to grab a heavy book or something to set on to kind of like the fringe area so that you can have something that weighs it down while you pull on these strings. So I'm using 2 loops at a time and just using a lark's head knot with an extra twist in it to put this on to my little twig. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. So last but not least, I can add a little hanging string. Now, I'm not gonna be cutting off the fringe evenly just yet because I want to weave all of these before I do that to make sure that we can cut them at the same length for all of them. Okay, we're ready to start the second weaving. So for the second weaving, I'm gonna do this exactly the way that I did the first one. So we're gonna speed right through this, but this time I will be using what color am I using? This time I'm gonna be using white yarn. All right, so I have the next little weaving finished, and I keep bringing in the other one to see that they are about the same length. Not perfection, just like wanting them to look good side by side, so I'm trying to make sure that they're a similar length. So This one, we're going to needle felt a little witch's hat. So we kind of need like a bit of an oval shape with a triangle on top. And then I also was thinking it'd be cute to add a little orange band around the hat. So what I'm trying to do here, and anytime you're creating multiple pieces that are supposed to go together, you want to think about the things that tie them together. So in this case, we have a few different things. We're using the same warp string. We're using the exact same size and brand of yarn in different colors. And then the other thing that's going to tie these together are the colors. So we have orange, like a burnt orange, black, and white is going to be in every single piece. So that's going to be another thing that makes them look like they belong together. So I'm going to grab some black again, and we're going to start, I think, with the brim of the hat. I know not everyone loves to sort of just wing it, like maybe it would be more helpful to draw something, but I do want to just show you that you don't always have to have an exact pattern to make something. I have a lot of fun actually not having exact patterns for everything that I do, just because it feels a little bit more freeform, almost like drawing or painting, which you can, you know, erase, but I mean, we're making pretty basic shapes, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'm just placing the wool on top of here, and I'm gonna try to make the general shape that I am going for, which again is sort of like just an oval. And I want the hat to go down to this part of the weaving, and then we'll have the hat like that. So I need to make sure that I don't have the brim too wide, because then the peak of the hat might not make a ton of sense. And then the other thing I'm looking out for is just trying to make it fairly symmetrical and make it, you know, mostly centered on the actual piece. So in this case, I'm coming almost to that second last warp string on the left. So I'm gonna do the same thing on the right. And I can even use some of this wool to start going up into the peak. So you can see it kind of taking form already. And then what I can also do is, before I even felt that in a bunch, is I can grab some wool to start on the peak of the hat too, so we can make sure that it's all gonna work out nicely. So if we want the peak, let's just try to make sure it's somewhat centered here. So that's centered right there. And kind of like with this one, so this one I started a little bit further down. It doesn't need to be exact, but I don't want to go to the very, very top of my weaving. I just think it looks a little bit nicer when we have a little bit of a border around. It just looks like it fits within the weaving better. So I have that started. And so I'm going to want to like kind of move down into there with this. Now, I think I will needle felt this a little bit more, lift it up every once in a while. The one concern I have is, how do I make sure that that remains fairly straight? So you can see that is kind of starting to take shape. And then we can kind of use this to sort of make like where that would actually be connected. So if you were actually making a hat, you would sort of have the top cone and then you'd have a brim. So we're gonna kind of emphasize that with the band that we're gonna needle felt around the hat, but we can also use this excess wool to do that as well, a little. But it's probably, I mean, it's all gonna just kind of blend in here momentarily. You can see I'm kind of making that hat, the triangle part, a little bit more narrow. It's like as I am felting it more, I'm kind of like seeing the shape a little better. And I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna kind of make sure that it's looking fairly symmetrical. Ooh, I've bent this needle. And that's what you have to be aware of. Once it starts bending, it's a little bit more likely to break. So I'm gonna be really careful with this one now. Okay, it's getting a little bit thin up in here. You can kind of see the white poking through. So I'm gonna probably have to add a little bit more up there just to fill that in, which is not a big deal because once it's felted in, you really can't tell. It kind of just all blends together. So there's another little spot where the white is sticking through. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit more. I think this one is just a little more obvious too with it being black on white. So we'll just fill that in. All right, now I could have made like a little bit of a curve on the witch's hat, which I suppose we might still be able to accomplish just a little bit of a bend at the top. So I'm just kind of angling my needles in this way to kind of make an indent there. So just so it's like not so perfect, it's got a little bit of that lean to it. So now we're gonna add a little band around the rim. Now I have this burnt orange color that's like fairly similar to the orange one that we did. So that's why I'm gonna use that. Because again, we wanna kind of connect all the elements of these pieces. So I want it to kind of curve down like this, because I do think that's gonna be what kind of makes it look more like a three-dimensional shape. Right now it's very two-dimensional. Okay, so now I'm just trying to look at this to make sure it feels kind of right. I feel like it should go a little lower. So I'm gonna carefully take that out. It's not ideal, but I think it needed to be a little bit lower. Oh, that already looks way better to me. Okay, so now with this end, because this one is a little bit shorter, I can just sort of fold it back over like so and needle felt it into there. This one I might want to cut a little bit or even just pull some of it off. I might have to cut it though, just because it is a little bit too long to just sort of fold back over. Maybe now I can. Okay, we got a little witch's hat. It's very cute. I'm kind of wondering if there needs to be one more element, because you can see, actually, I don't know if there does though. I think my temptation is that like, there needs to be more, like maybe a buckle or something like that. And I mean, it would be so cool if I just had like a teeny tiny buckle. I could try to do maybe a little white buckle on this. Okay, let's try to make a buckle. I don't know if this is gonna work because it's just gonna be so tiny, but I kind of want to try. I'm gonna grab a long piece because I basically just need a little rectangle on there. Let's try. Okay, you guys, we've got a little buckle. I think that did definitely add something that I felt like was missing. It's a little bit of a tedious process because it's just so little. I feel like that really added something. It's so cute, and it felt like it was a little bit too plain, and you can see how these are really tying together nicely. Oh my gosh, these are so much fun. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Absolutely love this. I'm gonna finish the same way I finished the other one, and then we're gonna move on to the third. So another thing I'm paying attention to is when I'm tying on this hanging string, I wanna make sure that they are the same length as each other. So I'm just kind of setting the other one on top of this and measuring out from there. And again, nothing has to be perfect. It's just kind of my motto in life. And as best as I can, and something we were taught in art school was to be precise, not perfect. So precision over perfection. So that's what I am trying to go with here, is to not expect myself to be perfect, because sometimes that really takes the fun out of making things, you know? Like, I'm measuring these, let's see if they're the same. They're close enough for me. So I'm just gonna tie this on. So now I can move on to the third one. So for this third one, again, weaving this just like the other two, but this time I'm gonna weave in black. So for this one, I want to needle felt a little pumpkin, and I am gonna Google. So this one is gonna be kind of like the witch's hat in a way, where I need to kind of make it a bit of an oval, and then we'll need a little stem at the top, which I'm not sure what color that's gonna be. And I wanna do a face on the pumpkin, because obviously, I feel like we've got a face on the ghost, we need a face on the pumpkin, because these are Halloween themed, not just fall themed. So let's grab the same color. This is what color is this? I think it's called Rust. So I have a little piece of the wool here, and I just kind of folded in the ends. This might be a little bit on the thick side, honestly. Let's try pulling a little bit off. Just try to form this into this little bundle, and then we'll kind of shape as we go, kind of like we did with the other ones. And I'm just looking at a couple references. Where did that go? So I can kind of figure out the shape. I'm gonna just start in the middle. It's kind of weird with needle felting is you kind of have to just start in order to figure out where you're going. You can't just expect to kind of fully form it prior to felting. I'm gonna leave a little bit of room on the top for our stem. The nice thing again about pumpkins, just kind of like with the ghost, is it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, pumpkins come in so many shapes and sizes, so we don't have to make it super perfect. So we do know that like usually the bottom is somewhat flat, and then we've got a bit of an oval shape, so you can kind of see it starting to take shape. I'm like going back into the corners now and trying to round that. And we'll get the middle felted a little bit more. This is definitely thicker than the other two in terms of like how much wool I used. It doesn't really matter, but it does mean it's gonna take a little bit longer for me to needle felt it. We're getting to a pumpkin-y shape. So one thing I'm wondering about doing is almost trying to create those divots that would be in a pumpkin. So we kind of have a curve here and then a curve here. Now we're looking a little bit more pumpkin. I do feel like this is closer to this side now. So I might just go over here and try to bring that in a bit. And then I can also try to bring this out a little. It's like kind of fun to see it come together because, you know, we started with just kind of a blob of wool and then it slowly takes shape as we go. Let's try to tuck that in. Okay, I think I want to add a stem now, and I'm not totally sure what color to do because now we're going to be bringing in another color. My thought is that something like a brown, that's not really brown. A brown might be our best bet because it still ties in to the twig, but it's not going to be so in your face, for instance, like doing white, because I don't think white would really go. So I'm going to grab some brown. So you can see here, if we look at our twig, that's actually not bad in terms of bringing in another color. Let's see what that would look like. I think I already like that because it's subtle, but it still ties in with that other element of the branch. And I think that's looking pretty good there. Just want to make sure that this pumpkin kind of makes sense now. It's almost as if maybe the orange should be coming over top of this a little. I feel like this needs to be kind of combed out. It's like it needs some floofing. But I think I'm gonna move on to actually getting the face on this because I think that's gonna kind of bring it together. And then I can do any more little shaping that I feel needs to be done after. I do wanna do like the classic triangle eyes and a triangle nose and then some sort of mouth. I'm hoping that that won't be too difficult because it is pretty small. So let's start this here. And again, I kind of have to just like start and then I'll start forming the shape once I have it somewhat in there. So it's a triangle, so we want to make the bottom obviously a bit wider. Okay, that's already looking pretty good. I'm just always amazed at how like it starts by looking kind of like a mess, and then as you slowly keep needle felting, you can kind of shape it into what you need it to be. Okay, we've got one eye. I'm gonna grab another little bit of wool and start on the second one. And I'm kind of using those divots as like a place where the eyes are gonna go. So just like the other one, I'm gonna start by just kind of needle felting in the middle and then start forming it into that triangle shape after. So making the bottom wider and then bringing in the sides. Okay, we've got our eyes. Let's add a nose. And we're gonna do an upside down triangle for that. Okay, I'm happy with that nose. So let's make a mouth. I want this to just be classic Halloween. I think there's something kind of nostalgic about that. I'm a child of the 90s and I feel like we always had just, you know, the classic Halloween stuff. It wasn't necessarily like, you know how a lot of things right now can be like so stylish? I feel like in the 90s that wasn't really a thing. Everything was like a little bit on the cheesy side, but there's something like now as an adult I really love about that. But it's the nostalgia of it for sure. So we need to create those divots right in here. So I'm gonna try to do that by just angling my needle. So we're gonna create a bit of a triangle, inverted triangle shape right here. Then it comes out and then down again here. That looks pretty good actually. Okay. Okay, and then I think I might just cut this off. I have a little bit too much wool there. It's kind of looking like a cute little puppy dog right now, which is not a bad thing, but I'm trying to figure out what about the shape just isn't quite working for me. Guys, there's something weird. I don't know what it is. Why is it? It's like it's almost too cute. I mean, it is just kind of a happier pumpkin, which is not a bad thing. Okay, I think that's looking a little bit better. It is a very happy pumpkin. I'm not mad about it. I think now what I'm seeing here is this part of the pumpkin feels like, again, like it needs to be coming out this way a little bit. So I'm gonna see if I can do that just by angling this needle this direction. And then maybe now that we have this all in place, we can kind of re-emphasize those original curves that we made. And it's like, I could sit here and work on this pumpkin for so long, I feel like, but, you know, I think I need to reach a point where I'm like, you know what? It's done now. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is just kind of knowing when to stop. So I'm gonna finish the last weaving. We're gonna cut that fringe straight, and then we can look at these all together. We're almost done. The last thing I need to do is clean up the fringe a little bit. So I'm gonna grab my steamer and steam out the fringe so that it's nice and straight before I cut it. So now we can go ahead and trim these shorter. I think for this one, I'm gonna just like lay it down. And because I have 3 of these, I do wanna make sure that they're gonna be fairly even to each other. So I'm gonna set this one down and just kind of figure out which one's gonna end up being kind of the shortest one. All right, you guys, these 3 little Halloween weavings are all done. So let's have a look at the finished pieces. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm pretty obsessed. I think these are adorable and I hope you really enjoy making them too. And if you like this video, check out this one next.